Okay, Jeremy, the first question was, what are your views to the government's education reform in regards to secondary education and higher education?
Certainly secondary education, schools education, I am very supportive of. I think that the government are making some fairly radical changes, and that is the right thing to do. And certainly in Southampton we're seeing schools taking advantage of new freedoms, and that is working well in Southampton, so I think it's all positive.
And do you feel that the academy incentive is good for schools in the city, as Test MP Anne Whitehead has called it a step backwards and a shambles?
I think academies are not radically different to maintain schools. I think people that create this sense that there's some huge artificial divide, that says more about their politics, really. A school is a school, and what we want is head teachers, good quality head teachers, making the right decisions for their pupils, for their parents, and that's what academies give them. It gives them that bit of extra freedom. It allows them to spend their budget on their priorities rather than the council's priorities. And it gives them more choice over curriculum and that sort of thing. So I don't think it's hugely radical, but I think more choice, more diversity, more power to those that are delivering education has got to be a good thing.
And the coalition government are putting in legislation to make it easier to sack underperforming teachers.
Yes.
Now, do you feel where this is beneficial for Southampton, who have had in recent history a history of poor exam results compared to the rest of the country?
Well, our exam results now are really coming on leaps and bounds. We've been improving at a far faster rate than the national average for many years, and last year's results were tremendous. So I think we're going in the right direction. I think the government are right that, as in any job, if you're not doing the job properly, the first priority is to try and help those people and improve them and move them on. But if someone is not up to the job, then they shouldn't be there indefinitely. And if you look at the statistics, very, very few teachers ever lose their jobs. We've got thousands, tens of thousands of teachers in this country, but only a handful ever lose their job. Now those statistics don't sound right. It sounds like a culture of accepting underperformance, and the consequence of that has to be detrimental for children's education. So I do fully support the government, but I think it's not about sacking teachers as a first priority. It is always about trying to improve people and develop them to the best of their talents. But I think the consequences of allowing poor quality teaching to go on too long is it drives everyone's performance down. Even those excellent teachers will think, oh well, there's no point me putting in the extra effort because it's not delivering anything. So it's like any organisation, you've got to have proper performance management.
And do you feel the results are down, the poor results in the last, not obviously the last 2 or 3 years, obviously in the last 5 to 10 years, are down to poor administration from the previous Labour government and the previous Labour-led City Council? Not it's in the last 2 to 3 years, so we'll say if we're going back to when it was a Labour and a Labour Lib Dem council.
I think everyone has a share of the blame, and I think when you're talking about success, I wouldn't say it's down to the Conservative Council to claim all the success. I think it's down to those head teachers, it's down to the local education authority who are working very hard. That's where most of the results come from. I think politicians set the policy, they set the framework, they set the rules, but they're not in the classrooms delivering the teaching. So I think you should always give credit where credit's due. But I think the new government are, and in fairness, that towards the end, the last Labour government were bringing in reforms which are helping teachers. I think giving them more freedom, giving them more choice, giving them more power over their budgets and their curriculum is the right thing to do, and it will lead to better results, and we're seeing that in Southampton. And I think this new change to allow head teachers to performance manage their staff properly will make a significant difference. So I think you've got to put the credit where it's due in the right instances, but not claim credit for things perhaps that you haven't done.
And one thing that's been a major topic in the news recently is the introduction of free schools. What are your views on this, and are there any plans for any free schools to be introduced into the Southampton area?
Yes, I'm very supportive, and yes, there are plans for free schools in Southampton. I think we're in a fortunate position in the primary sector that we have more children coming through than we have places. So that's always better position where you're, certainly as a politician, where you're providing new school spaces and you're expanding schools and you're providing schools, than the opposite, where we've been in the secondary sector for the last few years, where we've actually had too many spaces and we've had to close schools, which is always a very painful and difficult subject. So we're expanding our schools locally, but there is definitely room for free schools in that, and I'd like to see some free schools set up, because I think if you're going to have choice, you do actually need to have overcapacity in the school sector. You need to have more spaces than there are children, otherwise you don't have choice. We have had a number of free school providers, but interested parties come forward, community groups, etc., that are working actively with us now at looking at free school applications. We've actually had a free school set up in Southampton, which was Rosewood School, so that's converted from a maintained school to a free school.
I'm just trying to think where Rosewood is.
It's next to the Road Rose Centre, so near the Woodman pub.
I know.
So a free school is essentially the same as an academy, but it's set up from scratch. Now, this was a little different in that it was an existing school that's converted. You will possibly see some private schools convert to free school status as well in the future.
Is that going to be similar to the special needs school in Thornhill? The one
yes.
The
Springwell. The Rosewood School is special needs for very disabled children, I think that certainly talking to the special needs schools in the area, they are looking very closely at whether they should become academy, whether they should come together under one banner, whether they should work with other special needs schools in Hampshire or the Isle of Wight and so on. So every school is looking at their options at the moment.
And finally, with exam results in Southampton now rising above the national average, how will the City Council strive to consistently improve the standards already set?
Well, as a council, we are setting targets for our secondary schools across the city, and they are very ambitious targets, and every school in Southampton knows what it needs to deliver in order for us collectively to hit that target, and we're all bought into that. So we're all signed up, we're all working very hard, and every school knows what it needs to do. Every school has its own improvement plan that it's worked with on the council. I think when you have schools becoming more diverse and exercising more choice, I'm still keen that we keep that collective sense of Southampton schools working together, and that schools don't all disappear off and do their own thing, because that's not in anyone's interest. When a school is struggling, if other schools nearby are doing well, they can help, and that's where I think we've, from a policy point of view, achieved the most in the last few years. We've paired up schools, we've moved head teachers around into supportive roles, and other heads have shadowed them and so on, and that's allowed some very, very rapid, in some cases in 12 months, a transformation of the school. We want to keep that partnership working, even though the future is more choice and more diversity and more autonomy for schools.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you.